million people consumed internet in 2011, and by 2016 it's gone up to 234 million. By 2021, they believe that 73% people in India would be consuming content in language and not in English. 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 new internet users are all going to be using internet, are going to be consuming internet in language. The engagement of rural media is approximately about 534 minutes per week compared to 436 of urban. So the idea is to give you a sense of why language, why regional media is so important. I've got a video that I'll share with you. So let me break some myths over here. You know, when we think of language newspaper, when we think of language media, I think a basic myth is that regional means rural. You know, when you look at the top 15 cities in this country, nearly about 69% of them actually consume language media and not the English media. Most of the people would want to believe that people who are consuming language media belong to a low socioeconomic strata, which is not true again. A lot of us would want to believe that the infrastructure that is provided in the language media is something which is very similar to maybe the government offices, with your ceilings leaking, but that's again not the scenario. So language is not rural, language is not socioeconomically poor. The infrastructure here is fantastic. Even at Lokmat, our belief is that we are providing a service. We are kind of, we are giving out media in a regional language, but the ambitions are very, very clearly international. So I was given to talk about the language media and the digital scope. Let me talk about the new age content that we are developing and the kind of content that people are consuming in this area. I think everyone sitting over here, if you're consuming any of the news channels, I think most of the people are looking at global as well as hyperlocal content. So you could be sitting in Jaipur looking at a news from Johari Bazaar, but you will be as interested in understanding what is happening with the French elections. I think the boundaries that all of us, most of the traditional media were used to working in are really, really disappearing. I think if there was somebody who was consuming a newspaper or was reading a newspaper or was consuming a certain language television media sitting in Solapur or in Udaipur, I think he's no more going to be looking at, now he's got the choice of consuming a Wall Street Journal or a New York Times as well as a Lokmat. So I in no way can provide anything that's inferior content. I think you'll have to, all the new readers are going to be extremely trendy. They are looking to consume content which is very, very international, and we'll have to make sure that the content that's being provided is equivalent to their ambitions. You will have to continuously innovate in this new digital medium. I think yesterday's new idea is today's formula. I think what worked about a year back would not work today. I think the way people are consuming internet is very, very different and is continuously changing. I think you'll have to give a lot of liberty to everybody who's working within this space to kind of experiment with newer formats, get your users to engage, create a lot of different segments, create a lot of different formats which have never been used before. Try and go the beaten track, try and go off the beaten track, and let everybody in your team experiment as much as they can. I think that's where the new set of users are coming from. One of the challenges that we've been facing is that, while we share great relationships with Facebook, with Twitter, with Google, all of them, I think majority of them, other than Hindi and English, they don't understand language media. So I think it's going to be very important, but I think they're moving pretty fast. So search is a tough thing to do in language media. Hopefully that is something that, they'll overcome very, very quickly. There are very fewer tools available in language media, which I'm pretty sure, since looking at the importance of language, most of the people, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, and we've been having this conversation very, very closely with them. And I think soon you'll see keyboards which are a lot more efficiently used by language, in language, a lot of tools, a lot of search tools that are available in this segment. So who's consuming? So let me talk about the creators in the digital age. Who are these guys who are creating this? I think while there was television, while there was newspaper, there was an editor position, there was a news editor position, there was a set of reporters who were creating this content and bringing it out to you. I think in this new age, the creators are actually going to be a lot of audience themselves. I think you'll have to create. So even when we created our CMS, our, what we call as matrix, we were very clear about it, that the matrix should help every audience, everyone who's engaging with our content, to also come out and provide content to us. So user-generated content is going to become very, very big. So you'll slowly find a lot of audience themselves becoming editors. Anyway, I think your new age content users are extremely opinionated. So that's why it's very important that when you make a team of editorial people, they understand what your target audience is. If my target audience is anywhere between 18 to 24 or 18 to 25 years old, I need a team that understands what Dhinchak Puja actually means. I cannot, or if I'm providing content to people between 25 and 35, they need to understand what are the ethos, what is it that this new age content people are actually writing about, are reading about. Also, this is not the age of competition. I think there's a lot of cooperation happening, and you have been seeing it very, very closely. I think while we competed very aggressively in the traditional media, I think in the digital media, you'll see a lot of relationships coming together. You're going to be working with a lot of distribution channels. Lokmat itself works very closely, like I mentioned, with Facebook, with Google. We are very close to signing with UC Web. So distribution is becoming, I don't believe that the content is only going to belong to you. This is my content. I'm only going to be putting it out on my site. I think it's going to be very easy for me to push it on to outside India, to boundaries which have never been seen before. We ourselves are looking at creating a lot of partnerships with a lot of hyperlocal content creators. We are going out to different states. We are speaking to smaller media houses. We are talking to smaller content creators who are creating media, who are creating news at a hyperlocal level, to try and put all of them together, aggregate that content and push it out at a national platform. Also, the average age of the creators is slowly coming down. I don't know how many editors are there from the newspaper industry, but I've belonged to the traditional media. I've spent most of my time with the newspaper industry. And I think the average age for someone to become an editor in a newspaper was something around, in his 50s. It could have even be late 50s. We've got Ayaz with us, we've got Sachin with us, and they would agree that I think if you had to become an editor of a newspaper, the average age would have been in their 50s or late 50s. By the time the television came in, the average age for the editors had come down to 40s. And you're slowly seeing that the editors in the digital media, whether it's language or whether it's any other, whether it's English, whether it's language, is slowly coming to in their 30s. Because the people who are consuming a lot of the digital media is extremely young. So you're looking for people who are also understanding this. And let me say, I'm not only from age, but I think young at heart, because my editors here, Chanduji is here, Yogesh is here, all of them, but I would want to believe that they're extremely young at heart. I don't know how many, everyone that, when you've read a lot of articles about retail, there used to be a very clear-cut saying that in retail there are three extremely important things. One is location, second is location, and third is location. I think when you look at digital content, I think that's something that's going to relate to data. That I think data. I think the amount of data that's going to be available to on your fingertips is enormous. And anybody who's taking up journalism, who's joining, who's going to get into creation of content needs to understand how important and how do you utilize this data. Data obviously is just going to be leading you towards a decision. It's not going to be making a decision for you, and let it not make a decision for you. But make sure that you're understanding that data. I think if people would have gone out and, at Apple, if they would have gone out and asked audience that, do you think we should release an iPod or should we release an iPhone? The answer would have been no. But I think what they looked at was that how many people are consuming music on a handheld. And could that be better than a Sony Walkman? And that's how an iPad or an iPhone came up. So make sure, you are looking at data. I think it gives an amazing opportunity which was not available to us previously, to look at each and every individual and understand what kind of content people are really using. So if there's somebody from Jaipur who's come over there, is he also looking at news from Udaipur? Is he also looking at news from Bikaner? Or is he looking at a lot of sports news? Is he looking at a lot of lifestyle news? I think that content, that data point becomes extremely important, which is not there for you. So just make sure that, when you're working within any of these areas, that you understand how important data is. I had a slide earlier which I had skipped. I think this is something which all of us are getting extremely challenged with. I remember, whenever when all friends would sit together and we would make fun of, Barkha was there presenting, and we're going to have Rajdeep. So Rajdeep writes for Lokmat, and we've had this conversation a couple of times that the breaking news syndrome in news channels was just a disaster. Everyone was trying to get, there was a time where there were 2 bomb blasts in Bombay, and I think there were news channels which came out and reported 5 of them. Because there was this fight to make sure that who's going to be the first one to report this first. And I think digital takes breaking news to another level. So it's actually going to be about seconds and maybe not about minutes. So credibility of news becomes that much more important. It's going to be extremely important that everything, as responsible journalists, are we making sure that the facts are being checked? We are already, while we are still at a nascent stage in the digital media, we've slowly started talking about fake news, about credibility of news. We've seen that in the Trump elections. We've been seeing that very regularly in the kind of content that gets circulated in the social media, how fake that is. We'll have, there could be floods that would have happened in 2004, but the pictures of that are being circulated, and there'll be news channels which would come out and immediately start talking about it. We'll start putting it out on the news content. So it's becoming very important that the credibility of journalism in the digital media stays the way it has been in the traditional space. The competition in digital is growing exponentially very, very fast. So what that also means is the time that was given to journalists for training when a trainee joined in an organization is slowly reducing. I think there was a time when somebody joined in the newspaper, would go through 15-day, 1-month training, would go through different divisions. I think that is slowly not available to us because the boundaries are moving out already. English sites are moving into Hindi and other languages. Hindi are moving into different languages. We ourselves are looking at moving from Marathi to Hindi and to other languages. What that means is that the time span to build up teams is slowly becoming is crunching. But I also believe that in the future and in the long term, only credibility will win. So if you look at the top 10 news sites in the world, in US, if you remove the tech sites out of it, so if you remove Google and Facebook, which are the biggest providers of news, I think the remaining sites, all of them are traditional media except Huffington Post. So it is still a New York Times, it is still a CNN, it's still a BBC, which are up there in the top 10 because finally people believe that these are the ones who are able to create, who are able to give a lot more credible content. So either it will have to come from a credible face, or it will have to come from a credible house for people to build that journey. But over a period of time, it will only be credibility that would actually move forward and which will win. That brings me to the end of it. What's our story been at Lokmat? So about few years back, we decided to take the plunge in the digital media. We created a small division called as Clickstart. We looked for champions within our company who could take this digital media together, and that's where CK, Yogesh, all of them came together. Sandeep came in, but we were still amateurs at digital. I think it's a different beast altogether. It's difficult to understand what was happening over here, and that's where we got Hemant, who's also over here to come and champion this whole cause. I think the product that we've created over here is something which is phenomenal. Our CMS is something which is extraordinary. We spend a lot of time on creating this product. We are all ready to launch our Hindi sites by next month. We are traditionally a Marathi newspaper. For all of you who do not know Lokmat, so Lokmat is the largest read newspaper. We are the 6th largest in Maharashtra and 6th largest in the country. We are now looking at going in Hindi, in digital. We are also launching our entertainment. We have our entertainment site. We're also launching about 40 to 50 short films by next month. So we're going very, very aggressive on it. I'm not sure, or rather, I do not say that what we are doing is the best in this area. But I think whatever we are doing, we have a great time. We enjoy ourselves. We do a lot of experimentation. We do a lot of innovation. And I think that's what's giving us, that's what's creating a lot of excitement. So let me end with a video to show you what kind of things we are doing at Lokmat.
अरे अभी तो पार्टी शुरू हुई।